Hi, my name is Alina, and I'm a product designer at Deo Security. Today I want to talk about creating experiences by telling stories. People have been telling stories for thousands of years. The Epic of Gilgamesh is to be known the oldest story. It dates itself back to 2100 BC. Back then, stories are very important because this is how people pass their knowledge, their history, and it also served the purpose of entertainment. The National Storytelling Association describes storytelling as by design a co-creative process. It is in nature very personal and uniquely human. Most historians and psychologists believe that storytelling is one of the many things that define and bind our humanity. A good and well-represented story will be remembered long after over others. So the question is, why do we need stories in UX? And it's because stories create relationships and connections. Stories create a structure, and the structure is a foundation. We need foundation in everything. Stories help you to connect a designer to a user, help you connect your user to your product, and they also help connect a user to a user. So let's see how we can actually connect a designer to a user. Many of you probably UX designers here, and you can guess what's the answer. And the answer is user personas. User personas help create connections, and they make us care more. They also create relationships that build empathy, and we all know that empathy is very, very important for user experience design. And they help us to remember better who we're designing for. There are other ways to create those connections, such as user stories, user flows, and storyboarding, and actually clickable prototypes. And yes, I did mean clickable prototypes. Clickable prototypes should not only be built for usability testings, we should be building clickable prototypes for validating ourselves to make sure that our screens flow into one fulfilling story. And the main question is, so how can we apply stories in actual design? And here's a time for a story. Once upon a time, a product manager came to a designer, and he said, I have a lot of data, and I want to show that data to a user. Designer was bewildered, so she went to the magical forest called Internet. She crawled through debris of Internet search results, occasionally seeing a light at the end. Finally, she realized stories. There is nothing more clear than telling stories with data. So the way I found approach to telling story with data was create a flow with user, such as every morning I'll log into a browser to read my new email. Abstract this data, and then you can apply it for each individual step. While I was doing research about story with data, I found an amazing article that was saying that you should look at the data as a detective looking at the crime board. You need to collect all the evidence, and once you do have all this evidence, everything will come together, and you will know what visualization to use. Another good example of telling a story are timelines. I always feel very satisfied when I'm looking at timelines in interface. And then I realized it was because timelines create perfect connections. They create such a great story. And looks like my slides died. Okay. Yep, nope. You can look at the TV over there. Oh, here we go. So another example is telling a story of a brand. I personally think Trader Joe's is a great example. Their employees wear Hawaiian shirts, and they have all this flow. So while I was doing my presentation, preparing for it, I found this tweet. You probably all know Luke Wroblewski. He's a great guy, and he tweeted about stories. And I got very excited because it made me think that we learn how to dig deeper. So next time you're designing something, you should ask yourself a question: what story can I tell with this design? Because we should always be designing with stories in our minds. And remember, no one wants to retell a bad story. Thank you, everyone. My name is Alina. You don't need to remember my last name. If you want to talk to me about stories, anything else, come find me. You can tweet at me. I don't use Twitter very much, but I'll reply. Thank you all.